Good afternoon. This is a meeting of the Santa Fe County Sustainable Land Development Code Hearing Officer. We have 5 cases scheduled for hearing today. 1 has been tabled, which means we will have hearings on 4 of the scheduled items. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
Hearing Officer Virtue, there are no other
Okay,
changes.
thank you. With that, we will turn to the first case, which is case number 19-5150, Walking in Circles Ranch Inc. applicant, Seabird and Associates agent, requesting a conditional use permit to allow a horse rescue and rehab facility for up to 70 horses on 29.8 acres. The site is zoned residential estate and is located at 198 and 188 North Weimer Road in Commission District 3. And with that, we are ready for the staff report.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Virtue. I will be presenting the report. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to allow a horse rescue and rehabilitation facility of up to 70 horses on 2 tracts totaling 29.829 acres. A new 2,400 square foot office building will be constructed on tract 1, replacing an existing unpermitted 840 square foot office. The applicant has stated that once the conditional use permit is approved and the new office is built, the 840 square foot office will be removed from the property. The applicant is also proposing to install a new septic system that will only serve the proposed office. The existing septic system will continue to serve the residents. A total of 2 septic systems will be located on tract 1. A 6,048 square foot retention pond will be constructed on tract 2 to capture drainage. The horse rescue and rehabilitation facility is located on tract 1 and will operate from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 7 days a week. There will be a full-time caretaker, 4 full-time employees, 3 part-time employees, 1 horse trainer, and numerous volunteers. Clientele wanting to adopt a horse is by appointment only. Tract 2 will only be utilized for its well and for the use as a retention pond to capture drainage. Tract 2 is otherwise vacant with no structures. The site is zoned residential estate. Appendix B use matrix illustrates stables and other equine related facilities, commercial over 12 horses as a conditional use. Prior to the March 7th, 2019 TAC meeting, the applicant contacted staff to inquire about a building permit to construct a new office building at 198 North Weimer Road for the Walking in Circles Ranch Inc. Horse Rescue and Rehabilitation Facility. At that time, staff informed the applicant that they did not have a business license to operate a horse facility. Staff informed the applicant that in order to operate a horse rescue and rehabilitation facility for up to 70 horses, the applicant would need to apply for a CUP. Staff informed the applicant of the CUP process. Walking in Circles Ranch Inc. has been operating without an approved business license from Santa Fe County since 2002. Currently, the applicant has a caretaker living on site in the existing 2,144 square foot residence. There are numerous existing accessory structures on site, which include a main stable, hay barn, grain barn, tack barn, east barn, and several loafing sheds. The total square footage for all structures including the proposed office, totals 16,802 square feet. The existing structures will continue to be used by the horse facility. Staff has been able to locate 1 permit, which is for the single-family residence. The site plan submitted with that permit illustrates a barn adjacent to the residence, which is identified by the applicant as the main barn. No other structures were illustrated on the site plan. The application was reviewed for the following applicable design standards as per Chapter 7 of the SLDC: access, fire protection, landscaping and buffering, lighting, signage, parking and loading, utilities, water supply, wastewater and water conservation, protection of historic and archaeological resources, terrain management, flood prevention and flood control, and solid waste. The applicant has addressed the conditional use permit criteria for Chapter 4.9.6.5 of the SLDC, and staff has also provided responses as stated in the staff report. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to allow a horse rescue and rehabilitation facility of up to 70 horses. The use is compatible with the current development within the residential estate zoning district. The use will not impact adjacent land uses. the application satisfies the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDC inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in chapter 4, section 4.9.6.5. The review comments from state agencies and county staff have established findings that this application for a conditional use permit to operate a horse facility is in compliance with state requirements and design standards set forth in the SLDC. Recommendation, staff recommends approval of a conditional use permit to allow a horse rescue and rehabilitation facility up to 70 horses on 29.829 acres, subject to the following conditions. Hearing Officer Virtue may enter those conditions into the record.
You may.
Thank you. Also, I've got a handout that shows the revised landscaping plan that was not part of the original submittal, but it has been reviewed by staff. And it was not part of the packet. And I stand for any questions.
Okay, so this is a new plan that has not been part of the record.
It's not correct, it's not
Okay.
part of the record of the packet.
So I will call that, label that hearing exhibit 1. And if there's no objection, I will add it to the record at this time. Any objections? Does that conclude your report?
Yes,
Ms.
Mr.
Lucero? Thank you.
Hearing Officer.
I'll reserve any questions I have for staff until later. At this time, I'd ask that anyone who will be speaking on behalf of the applicant to please identify yourself for the record by name and address and be sworn.
Do we stand up, sit down?
You can stay where you are. Just
Victoria,
raise your hand.
Victoria Dalton, 915 Mercer Street. Richard Holder, would you like to?
Richard
Oh, we'll
Holder.
do it all at once. Yeah. Oh, Ms. Wayne Dalton, okay. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give us the whole truth? I do.
Yes. And anyone else may speak, so I have some of the board members.
Okay,
Should we also get them
we'll
sworn
just
in?
swear you guys all in, and before you speak, state your name for the record. Okay, everybody raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give us the whole truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
The applicant may proceed.
Okay. So, Victoria Dalton, I'm with Siebert and Associates, and so since all of our clients have been sworn in, I'll introduce them. And so we have Richard Holder, who is the past president and who is now presently the building chairperson. Sorry, I knew I might forget. And then we have Shar, who is, I'm sorry, hello, Shar. She is the present president. Lori Michael, thank you. Vice President. Vice President, I just met everyone. Lori,
Keating, secretary.
thank you. Marianne. Yes, board member, and Richard, Roger.
Roger Shiddick, volunteer.
So now that we all discovered that I'm not very good at introductions.
If I might just ask you to just state what the name of the organization is that these people are officers and
Of course.
board members of, just for the record.
So these are all members of the Walking in Circles, so the Walking in Circles Board of Directors. What the facility is a horse rescue as described in the staff report. The facility has been in operation and has also had a turnaround of board members, and so you know at some point in time they may have thought there may have been a permit for the use since it's gone on for such a long period of time. So this is the site here. This area was the site of the whole facility, and right adjoining it we have residential property. I just would like to point out that the property right above, up on the north side, so that's zone rural fringe, and that allows, it's a permitted use to have more than 12 commercial horses. So had we been one lot up we would have been able to do this as an administrative site plan process. We've been working diligently with staff and to get to this point, we've submitted several documentation. I stand for any questions.
I have no questions at this point. Well, I would like that, just for the record, to explain the nature of the organization. You explained it was walking in circles. Is it a nonprofit corporation? Is it incorporated as an association?
Hearing Officer Virtue, I believe Richard Holder could answer that question a lot better than we can.
Yes, sir, we are a 501c3. We are licensed by the New Mexico Livestock Board. We receive an annual evaluation and inspection from that board. They're the ones who set the value of 70 horses. We currently have limited ourselves to about 40 horses or less, simply for financial reasons. We have about 100 and some volunteers, and none of them was paid. At any given time, probably 5 to 10 are on the premises. Right now, we have 35 horses, I think, something like that, and we also have some horses that we place in foster homes around the Edgewood area. Our mission is to accept horses that have been abandoned or have been treated badly and captured by the livestock board or turned in by an owner because they can no longer care for them. We bring those horses up to standard value by veterinary care, which we pay for, and by feeding them correctly, and then we train them both for groundwork and for riding, and then we try to get them adopted. And so our process is to take a horse in, feed it, have it checked up with a veterinary services, farrier services, things like that. And then train it if it's not already trained, and then find an adopted home for it. And that's what we do.
Thank you for that, that's helpful. What's the average length of stay at the facility, or is there a typical length or an average
I
length?
think we've actually done that study. Shar, do you remember what it is?
It's about 2 years.
2 years.
2 years, yeah. We have some horses that have been there for a long time. They're geriatric horses and may not be adoptable. And some come in good shape and well trained, and they're gone in a month or 2 months. It's a range.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the application? I will assume that the people who identified themselves earlier, who are on the board or officers, are in favor. You're welcome to make an additional statement if you want, but if not, we'll just note that you're in favor of the application.
We're in favor.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Okay. With that, does the staff have any response to anything that's been said by the applicant?
Hearing Officer Virtue, I think we've already, addressed everything and
Okay.
move on.
With that, I will close the public hearing and we'll have a written recommendation on the application within 15 business days of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a brief break to let the next set of applicants, or applicant and those involved come in.
I know. I said probably run off with the room.
Yeah.
I feel like a place in here since you had some questions.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you very much.
We can go check on.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there.
I'm out of space here.
It could be, I mean, certainly will cause people want to make sure.
Yeah, so I'm not sure.
Certainly for as a citizen, we will, but
Right, so I don't know. Okay, was there anybody in the conference room?
Nate's case is kind of.
Yeah, you just kind of make an announcement. Just say it to me. There's like a bit of
Just a few people,
There's a few, okay?
there's a few,
No.
5 or 6. Are you?
No, I'm not. Sure.
Hey Vicky,
How are you?
nice new building,
Thank you.
you must be happy.
Definitely,
Yeah, right.
definitely a big change.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone else.
Is there anybody on this?
I don't know. Proceed. Everybody ready?
I think we're ready. Are we ready?
We'll go on the record. This is case number 19-5200. New Mexico Gas Company applicant Jenkins Gavin agent requesting a conditional use permit to construct approximately 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline. The proposed transmission pipeline will begin at the western boundary of Santa Fe County at the base of La Bajada and will terminate at New Mexico Gas Company's existing regulator station located at Highway 59 and Interstate 25. The proposed transmission line will traverse through 11 separate parcels within a proposed 50-foot easement within commission districts 3 and 5. Well, I think we're ready to proceed with the staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor, sir. The New Mexico Gas Company proposes to construct approximately 13.5 miles of 20-inch steel transmission main line, which will loop the existing 12-inch Santa Fe main line. The route follows the existing and new right-of-way between Highway 599 regulator station in Santa Fe and the western boundary of Santa Fe County at the bottom of La Bajada. The project includes inline inspection, tool launcher and receiver stations, block valves and tie-ins to existing stations. The project will require a 50-foot easement or right-of-way for the new line, which includes 25 feet for a working lane and 25 feet for a passing lane. In addition, another adjacent 25 feet will be utilized temporarily for spoil and is only required during construction. The disturbed area will be reclaimed and stabilized per the requirements of the reclamation plan once construction is completed. The transmission line will be installed per the standard NMGC details with a minimum cover depth of 4 to 7 feet below existing grade and a minimum of 7 feet where the line bores across any waterways. A geotechnical evaluation report has been completed to fully understand the subterranean conditions and engineer the project accordingly. Hearing officer, in your report, it says attached, the geotechnical evaluation was not included as an exhibit, that was a typo on my part. NMGC is actively securing easements with 11 private landowners as well as rights-of-ways with the New Mexico Department of Transportation, which includes the NMDOT rail runner crossings and one Interstate 25 crossing. All NMDOT crossings will be done via directional drilling as to not disturb the existing improvements. The transmission line will traverse through 1.3 miles of Central Domingo Pueblo property, 0.5 miles of National Guard property, 0.6 miles of NMDOT property, and 0.4 miles of state property, which Santa Fe County does not have jurisdiction. The remaining 12 miles is private property where Santa Fe County does have zoning jurisdiction. The applicant states the Department of Energy originally built the Santa Fe Main Line 12-inch natural gas transmission line in the 1940s to serve the Manhattan Project. The SFML pipeline extends through Cuba to Los Alamos, across the Santa Fe National Forest, and across the Via Caldera National Preserve. The NMGC utilizes this pipeline to augment the supply to north central New Mexico, including Los Alamos Labs and Los Alamos County. The construction of the new 20-inch natural gas transmission pipeline in Santa Fe County would allow NMGC to eliminate the DOE main line, which would reduce the maintenance requirements of that line and reduce capital expenditures related to integrity assessments. Furthermore, the new transmission line will increase capacity to northern New Mexico as well as provide a 20-inch SFML loop capacity for 40 plus years. The applicant also states the route for the proposed pipeline was selected after detailed environmental, archaeological, and technical analysis. The pipeline corridor begins at the western boundary of Santa Fe County at the base of La Bajada and ends at the NMGC's existing Highway 599 regulator station. To the extent feasible, the route follows the route of an existing 12-inch transmission line referred to as the Santa Fe Main Line. In Santa Fe County, the pipeline route will be located primarily in new easements and rights-of-ways that will be 50 feet in width. The planned route runs through 11 private parcels within Santa Fe County. Hearing Officer Virtue, before I go on, I would like to present to you an exhibit. Present to you an exhibit which illustrates a proposed realignment of the proposed easement which runs through Mr. Paul Parker's Santa Fe Metro property. Also, a second exhibit is a letter from Select Row, a company acquiring easement for NMGC that addresses the acquisition of the realignment easement and an aerial illustrating the realignment of the easement. Ordinance 2016-9, the Sustainable Land Development Code, Appendix B, Use Matrix, identifies long distance or bulk pipelines for petroleum products, natural gas, or mineral slurry as a conditional use within the agricultural, ranching, rural fringe, mixed use, and PD zoning districts. The applicant has addressed the conceptual use permit criteria per section 4.9.6.5 and staff has responded to the applicant's response. The applicant submitted an environmental impact report and a physical impact assessment. Staff has determined that both the EIR and the FIA prepared for the proposed CUP meets the intent outlined in section 6.3 and section 6.7. The applicant addressed the applicable design standards outlined in chapter 7 of the SLDC. The applicant addressed access, fire protection, signs, protection of historic and archaeological resources, and terrain management. Staff has determined that the above mentioned design standards, as addressed by the applicant, met the criteria set forth in chapter 7 of the SLDC. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to construct approximately 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline. The use is compatible with the current development within the the affected zoning districts. The uses will not impact adjacent land uses, and the application satisfies the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDC, inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in chapter 4, section 4.9.6.5. The review comments from the State Historic Preservation Office and county staff have established findings that this application to construct 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline is in compliance with state requirements and design standards set forth in the SLDC. Staff recommends approval of a conditional use permit to allow approximately 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline meandering through 11 separate properties, commencing at the western boundary of Santa Fe County at the base of La Bajada and terminating at NMGC's existing regulator station located at Highway 599 with the following 6 conditions. Hearing Officer Richard May entered the 6 conditions into the record.
Yes, they'll be admitted.
Staff also recommends that a 7th condition be placed on the application, which states prior to this application moving forward to the planning commission, the applicant shall submit a geotechnical evaluation report, an archaeological study, and a terrain management plan for the realignment of the easement on the Santa Fe Metro property to be reviewed and approved by staff and SHPO. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Staff requests the hearing officer memorialize findings of fact and conclusions of law in a written order. The Santa Fe County Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on this matter on January 16th, 2020. I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marinaga. Has the applicant seen these 2 exhibits that Mr. Marinaga
Yes, we
submitted?
have, yes,
And do you have any objection to admitting them?
we have no
into the
objections.
Okay, so I will label the map as hearing exhibit number 1 and the letter as hearing exhibit number 2, and they will be admitted into the record. At this time, I would ask those who will be speaking on behalf of the applicant to please identify yourself by address and name for the record, and then we'll have you sworn in.
My name is Tom Domme, D-O-M-M-E, and I'm the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and General Counsel for New Mexico Gas Company. And my address is 7120 Wyoming Boulevard Northeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I know how to get there, I just don't.
My name is Curtis Winter, W-I-N-N-E-R. I'm the Director of Safety, Technical, and Land Services for New Mexico Gas Company, the same address as Mr. Doman.
My name is Angela Serrano de Rivera. Let me give you my card so that you can spell that.
Always appreciate it.
Address is on there. That's my address.
My name is Colleen Gavin, Jenkins Gavin, my address is 130 Grant Avenue, Santa Fe.
And I forgot my title is Director of Engineering.
Okay, if you will just raise your hand and be sworn, each of you.
Do you swear from the testimony about to give us the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
The applicant may proceed.
Okay, hearing officer Virtue, thank you very much. County staff, thank you very much for your time and attention to this case in particular, Jose, who I've been working with on this. I'm gonna first just hand out a booklet to help us walk through the project. As Jose mentioned in his introduction, it's 13.5 miles from the bottom of La Bajada Hill to the 599 I-25 interchange more or less. And so we have some maps in here to help illustrate the improvements. And we also have a larger full-size copy on the table if that's necessary to clarify any questions that may arise. So I'm just gonna go through the presentation, but before I begin, I'd like to have Tom Domme, who's a VP and of Regulatory and General Counsel for New Mexico Gas, just do a very quick statement overview.
Yes, I'll be very brief. I want to thank you for hearing us today, and I want to thank the staff for all the work that you've done on helping us present this today. We appreciate the opportunity to be heard and to make this presentation to you today. As has been mentioned in the staff's report, this project is important to New Mexico Gas Company and to the state of New Mexico because what it does is it allows us to increase the capacity of natural gas to northern New Mexico from looping our Santa Fe mainline. So increasing the capacity up from Bernalillo through Santa Fe to Espanola, to Taos, to Red River, to Cuesta, and to Los Alamos. So this is an important project for us. It also does, as we've mentioned, allow us to focus on potentially eliminating the DOE mainline, which was built back before World War II to serve gas into Los Alamos. By doing this line, it allows us to feed Los Alamos from this side instead of from the other side. We haven't yet determined whether we're actually going to eliminate that pipeline, but it would allow us to downgrade it if we chose to do that and or eliminate it. So what this does is really help the supply of gas into northern New Mexico, and that's why we're proposing this project at this time. Angela is the Director of Engineering for New Mexico Gas Company. Curtis is the Director of Land Management. They're the experts on this and they will be the ones answering questions. I'm just here to thank you and to introduce them and I'll answer the questions as well from the regulatory point of view, but that's my function. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're just gonna go through our booklet very quickly. I think that Jose did a very thorough staff report and I just wanna state that we are in agreement with the conditions of approval. I do wanna make a friendly amendment to condition number 2. Condition number 2 reads that prior to recording the conditional use permit, the applicant shall submit to staff for the record the recorded documentation of the acquisition of the entire 13.5 mile, 50-foot wide easement utilized by the gas transmission line. We would like to add to the end of that sentence, or evidence of a right of entry pursuant to the New Mexico condemnation statute.
Does the staff have a position on the amendment?
I think we're fine with that, Hearing Officer Richard.
Anyone else present have any comments on the proposed amendment? If not, I'll accept the amendment as one of the proposed conditions.
Okay, great, thank you very much, Hearing Officer Virtue. Okay, so just to go through because I wanna give us enough time just to answer questions, but just briefly to go through some of our visuals here. If you go to Exhibit A, the first sheet, as the staff report says, this is basically illustrating the existing Northwest service area for New Mexico Gas. So currently, this is the areas that are served via the transmission lines that are in place. And if you go to the next sheet, as Tom mentioned, basically the objectives of this project, of the Santa Fe Mainline Looping Project, basically the real priority here is to increase capacity in northern New Mexico. And really as kind of a secondary objective is to potentially eliminate that 1940s DOE mainline that runs through the Jemez. And really the result here is really about modernization. With all infrastructure, technology changes, regulatory requirements change, they advance, and it is always prudent for utilities to propose these modernizations and improvements and pursue them in the interest of the state of New Mexico, and in particular Santa Fe County. The next is just an illustration of that DOA main line that potentially will be abandoned or repurposed with this project. And here you can see in the green, that's an outline, kind of a very simple graphic identifying where that Santa Fe main line is coming up. And is actually coming down all the way from Bernalillo through Pueblo Properties, and then as stated in the staff report, as far as Santa Fe County, beginning at the bottom of La Bajada and then terminating at 599 and I-25. I don't think I need to really repeat this. Again, it's a 13.5 mile, 20-inch steel transmission line, and it's gonna be running through easements and right-of-ways through the route we just discussed. So if you go to the first tab,
And this is the map that's on the table, if anybody would like to take a look at it. What this does is it more clearly identifies the 11 properties that are being affected by this proposed improvement. And you can see that on the lower left hand of this map, the area, the line in black, and that actually is area that's in Santo Domingo Pueblo, so it is not of the purview of Santa Fe County. But where then you begin on property number 1 in the red line, that shows the route for the 20-inch main line to come up. And you see how it hugs, basically it is mirroring the existing line that runs up La Bajada and that existing scar that you can see as you're driving north on I-25. And then it hugs as best we can to the Interstate 25 along the properties there, crossing a few county roads, some DOT. There's in the middle between 4 and 5, there's a small area where it crosses DOT right of way. Comes, and then as you go up to properties 5 and 6, it then comes to the south and to the east of some residential neighborhoods. And then coming over to the to some state property there on the right, coming up to the National Guard, and then coming up towards I-25 again and back into the DOT right of way. And as Jose mentioned, there's about 13, there's actually about 12 miles that are in Santa Fe County private right of way. We've got about 1.5 miles in Santo Domingo. As a New Mexico Armory, we've got about 0.5 mile. DOT is just over 0.5 mile, and the state of New Mexico is about 0.5 mile. So currently, as far as acquisition of the easements and right-of-ways, we currently have 6 of the 11 properties have been recorded of the private properties. We have 1 is a verbal commitment, and there is 1 that is still in negotiation, and then we have the realignment, of course, of Mr. Parker's property, which is property number 9, and so that is currently ongoing. So if you go through the book, these are just enlargements of those sections, and so the tabs identify the property that is being illustrated in the larger, so I don't think it's necessary to go through it unless we have some questions in particular to those properties at this time. So if you go to the tab 9 through 11, showing the properties 9 through 11, and go to what is labeled as Exhibit D. These are some details that were included in our application, just showing the standard easement that is utilized for installing the trench and the main line. You can see the 50-foot right of way for basically equipment and then the actual implementation of the installation of the pipe. And then there's a temporary 25-foot easement that's utilized for spill. And if you go to the next page, you can see that actually a photograph of that here. So this is a typical installation of a pipeline. And you can see on the right, we have the laid down area where equipment can come and go and equipment is staged. We have the 25-foot section where the trench is installed. And then you have your temporary easement to the left, which is where the spill is located temporarily and then obviously relocated back when they're backfilling. And then if you just want to flip through, there's just some more illustrations of pipe installation. And this was actually, pipeline was installed 2 years ago up towards Taos. And I don't know if you were caught up in that traffic when they were working during the evening hours, but it was a much tighter scenario of installation where they kept the construction site was very tight, and obviously to maintain traffic to and from, they had 1 lane open. And so this scenario, obviously we are not adjacent to a major state highway where we have to keep traffic flowing. And so utilizing that 50-foot with the temporary 25-foot easement is really key to having efficiencies in this installation. So if you go to just flip through, you can just see again visuals, just understanding how the work is done. You can see the pipe being laid into the trench. And then, of course, as was brought up in the staff report, there are standards for how the pipe is actually drilled underneath any type of existing roadways, waterways, and how it is installed underneath existing utilities. So New Mexico Gas has a protocol for installation in all those conditions. This first one is illustrating how the pipeline would do a direct boring underneath in a waterway, whether it's an arroyo or a creek. You can see the next illustration is showing the directional boring underneath an existing roadway. And then the next two are illustrations of how the pipeline would be and the standards of separation between existing utilities. So this pipeline is not only being installed via open trenching and laying down of the pipe, coming up from La Bajada to basically to the top of La Bajada. We're gonna be utilizing directional boring, which I mentioned before, which is utilized under roadways and waterways. But that area, because of the existing rock and terrain, we are actually gonna be doing directional boring for that segment. And so this next picture illustrates how directional boring is done. And then the next illustration is just identifying the signage that is involved with this utility improvement. And for all of the buried line, there are markers that are placed along the line. And then for any above ground improvements, those markers, that signage, pardon me, is also utilized. And the next photographs again just shows you an example of a new line. You can see the reclamation and stabilization of the area that was improved, and you can see those markers. And reclamation is really key to any project that New Mexico Gas does, if there's any disturbance to the ground. And in complying with the requirements of the SLEC, all of these sections will be reclamated. And here's just an illustration of a pipeline construction. You can see where there's some reclamation with reseeding and stabilization of slopes. And then you can see 2 years following, you can see the growth that has occurred. And then of course, you know, in obviously the EIR that was submitted as part of our application, of course we will be in compliance with that and documenting all of the improvements that will be installed as part of this project. And so with that, we have summarized our response to the conditional use permit criteria. I think that Jose did a very thorough job of explaining that, but if we do need to review that at all or reference it, we have included it here with some highlights. So with that, I would like to open this up for any questions. And again, we are in agreement with staff's recommendations of approval.
Does the staff have any questions of the applicant?
No, I think we're fine.
Okay.
You're not.
I just had a couple, regarding the you call it the horizontal boring, you're gonna go underneath the roadways.
Correct.
Can you
Yes.
do that without disrupting traffic? I mean, is there any interference with traffic flow at all, when that is done?
Angela, would you like to go ahead and answer that?
So it depends on the area that we're doing it at, but typically no. That's one of the reasons that we do directional boring is because it's less impact to both traffic, to the environment. So it's a good way of less impact to the surroundings.
And what, just for background information, what's the construction timeline for this project? I assume it's gonna be a multi-year effort.
So we plan to start April in 2020 and complete by October of 2020.
Really?
Estimated.
So it's a very aggressive schedule. Those were all the questions I have. Does anybody else wish to speak on behalf of the applicant, any of the persons to be sworn Okay. Are there members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the application?
No, that's later.
Okay. Seeing none in favor, are there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to the application?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Please identify yourself by name and address.
Sam Roberts, box 1535, Cedar Crest, New Mexico. I work for the Peplers.
Can I swear
We're
you in,
gonna
sir?
need to have you sworn in.
Do you swear affirm the testimony about to give us the whole truth?
I do. Anything else?
No, go ahead.
You may-
I represent the Peplers here, Mary and Patty, who have inherited this property from their father, my grandfather Larry Pepler. We had to deal with eminent domain with the rail runner. First thing they were wanting to know, if they're wanting to run a new line, how they're able to get it past the Indian land. With no eminent domain power with those guys.
Can the
I can
applicant
answer that
respond?
question.
Yes.
We've negotiated right of ways with the Pueblos on the way up to Lavada Hill.
Do you guys have those negotiations finalized?
Yes.
Patty Pepler, same address.
Please
Raise
stand
your right
and be
hand.
sworn. Ms. Kepler.
Do you swear affirm the testimony about to give us the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
And please state your name.
Patty Pepler. Concerning the boring that's going under the rail runner, are we sure we're going to be into code on that with the rail runner and everything that we've just put in lately from Santa Fe County? Are we doing this to specifications for the state or for the federal railroad?
So I'm gonna have Curtis Winter answer that question.
Yes, sir, Hearing Officer Virtue and Patty, as we've talked, New Mexico Gas Company, we intend to bore the DOT. It's gonna be under permit from the state of New Mexico, working with the rail runner. We've done geotechnical investigations. And it certainly will be a permanent crossing with the DOT as well as the areas that we have identified on your property as the exhibit for the easement. So our intent is to absolutely comply with every regulation and every rule, not only crossing the rail runner, but all of the other areas that we operate.
Okay, the condition number 2, I didn't get to read it, but I heard there was an add-on for evidence of right of condemnation. Am I to assume this is a PRC act or is this a state act? Excuse my, are we going to be covered by the state if something like this transacts as the pipeline not being suitable for the site there, that it would be, it's just a high risk area on this high pressured line? Will it be up to code on everything that we need to do to keep it safe for the public? And if we don't comply, then this condition number 2 will allow you to go in and condemn, is that correct, the way I understand this add-on verbiage for condition number 2?
Yeah, so the friendly amendment to condition number 2, basically the evidence of the right of entry pursuant to the New Mexico condemnation statute allows New Mexico Gas to pursue condemnation per that statute. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanna address your question about safety of the line, cause you brought that up first.
Yes, I did.
Do you wanna address that? Sure. Yes. So this is a state-of-the-art pipeline. It is the newest materials, newest construction practices, it's the newest regulations. We adhere and go above and beyond all requirements of both federal and state requirements.
I heard the word sloping, folks. And you have to understand, I dealt with DOT on the Rail Runner and never anticipated those berms that we have out there now. And when we tried to discuss it with DOT, it was a design and plan as you go argument that they were talking about. Am I to understand that this will be surface level and there will be no humps, there will be no sloping, there will not be any of that
To answer
in your proposal here tonight for any of the landowners?
that is correct. Our application included fully engineered plans of this underground line. The entire line is underground. And so there will be no physical humps or change to the natural topography where this line runs. And that has been reviewed by Santa Fe County grading department. And so that line is completely underground, correct?
That was it. Do you have anything else?
We're one of the holdouts still, trying to do some negotiations, but more importantly, we have partners involved in quite a bit of this property, and I represent those partners. The PRC doesn't represent the partners in our vested interest and their vested interest in the property. And they've raised serious concerns. Multiple copies of easements that the gas company has come up with, along with select right-of-way, have been less than adequate. Nothing in the regards of hold harmless for any of our clients, nor any protections of issues that are involving the construction, nor addressing any issues we have as far as the burial depth, or particularly if you have to go underneath the rail runner, which is approximately 40 feet in the environment code from top to bottom, plus probably more what I imagine with federal statute. We've even raised awareness that it should be a continuous 10 feet, and they keep telling us the maximum they can do is 7 feet. We've raised this concern at many meetings. We've even asked for an engineering plan. I spoke with Curtis probably about 15 minutes ago before the meeting commenced, and he said there was a engineering plan that was sent to me, but the only plan that was sent to me was not an engineering plan. It was a conceptual plan that we're all looking at right now. We'd very much like to see that, because I know with a gas line of this size, there's not just one pipeline that needs to be run for this high pressure line. Any engineering statute or anyone who's an engineer can look and see that you need to run carbon dioxide gas to cool said line. We've also asked if this line would potentially go from being intrastate to potentially interstate one day, connecting to the Jonah gas field up in northern Wyoming, eventually to the Borrego pump station down in El Paso, over to Aztec, and eventually down to West Texas, which is a very good possibility. We even asked why they couldn't run the existing line with the one that was put in before I was even born. I've spent many hours down at the county looking at old easements, and with the way the old easements are written, there shouldn't be any reason why they cannot use the old line that is in place now and run the line that they were proposing to connect to the 599. Like I said, we're continuing negotiations, but those are things that we've had and they have not been answered, and multiple pieces of information we've requested, we have not been given. And we've also requested a piece of information that shows they have eminent domain power, they have not given that to us, but it's easily readable when you go to the website through NM Gas, which is an America corporation, Amera, out of Canada, and you can read that through multiple federal agencies that show that they have that power, but we have not been given that personally.
I have one more question, sorry,
Okay,
jump
Ms.
back and
Temple.
forth. What is Santa Fe County going to propose as an official safety setback for development from this gas line? And that is also a question that I would like answered. There is over I think there's 3.5 sections that we would have to deal with out there as far as development currently. And future development. I need to know what the setback from the gas line would be. What is Santa Fe County considering what their legal setback would be from that line?
So to answer I'm gonna answer your setback question and then I would.
I hope I've asked it right.
Yes, you did, you did.
Okay.
I'm also trying to make sure that we address a question that was brought up prior, but we'll do that after. So hearing officer Virtue, ma'am, there is a 50-foot, the proposed new transmission line will be in a 50-foot easement. So that's 50 feet, and that pipeline will be installed within that 50 feet. So the setback is within that easement. And so no development can occur within that cumulative 50-foot easement. So there's 25 feet that the gas line is set in, and then there's a 25-foot offset easement, but across the entire width of it, it's 50 feet. So no development can occur within that, obviously for safety of all.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I knew we couldn't plant anything in the right of way, but my question was, what is Santa Fe County going to propose as a safety and legal setback from this power gas line? That's what I'm wanting, because it
So-
has to be considered. 'Cause
I cannot speak for Santa Fe County, so
I
I'll have
understand.
Jose address that, but it is my understanding from the staff report that we received recommending approval is that they're in agreement with our required 50-foot easement within that
And that's it.
to house that gas line, but I will have county answer that question directly. Okay.
Would the staff like to address the question?
Sure. Hearing officer Virtue, the code doesn't regulate any additional setbacks, so we felt that with the pipeline within that 50-foot easement that was sufficient. So you just, people wouldn't be able to build into the easement and therefore not close to the gas line.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Herring, if I might address some of Sam's points, and we will continue negotiations with him, as we go forward. There was a lot in there, and I think the best way to deal with all that is really just deal with that in negotiations as we go forward. So, as far as where the line is going, CO2 lines and so forth, that has little to do with the approval of this CUP, but we will continue to negotiate with you and answer your questions the best we can. We've tried to be forthcoming, and we'll continue to be forthcoming, and so we will answer your questions as they come up.
Yes, and Mr. Roberts, just to respond to you, if this is approved, if the conditional use permit is approved, that does not affect your direct negotiations with the gas company on the issues you raised and others, just to clarify that.
Understood, thank you, sir.
Anyone else present that would like to testify in opposition to the application?
Chris Miller, 37 Taylor Loop. I'm affected on the boundary there. Excuse me. Mike, swear you in. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give us the whole truth? Yes. And please state your name again. Chris Miller. Thank you. I'm concerned. At the last meeting we went to, one person said you were gonna keep the old pipeline in use and have it run as long as it's good. Another person had claimed that the pipeline was gonna be shut down and emptied out and just left and not be used. I'm concerned about which way that's gonna go and also what are the safety precautions you're gonna use in that old pipeline? I mean, we see all the time on the news, these houses are blowing up from old pipelines and problems with that. So I wanna know what you're doing. Are you gonna keep using the old one or how you're gonna cap those or what you're gonna do with the old lines?
I'd be happy to answer that question. Hearing officer Virtue, Ms. Miller, this exhibit here, this is in the booklet, identifies the area of the old DOT main line here, which is currently operational. in our neighborhood meeting, we mentioned that that line may be abandoned and left in place. So that was the reference to a line being abandoned. The line that you mentioned that is still operational and will continue to be operational is the existing 12-inch Santa Fe line. And that 12-inch Santa Fe line runs parallel, actually it might be easier for me to show you over here. If I may. So the existing 12-inch Santa Fe line is in yellow here, okay? It currently runs parallel to our proposed alignment at the bottom of La Bajada. And then it actually crosses I-25 and is on the north side of I-25 here and runs through, and you can see it runs all the way to the regulator station at 599. You can see all the way near number 11. That line will continue to be operational, will remain in place. So that will remain as a distribution line. This will become the new transmission line. So that will remain in place, and will be the new transmission line. And again, as our presentation mentioned, is the whole point is to basically bring in state-of-the-art technology for this new line. This line was built in Curtis, remind me,
1964.
64.
Or excuse me, this end was 65.
64, 65. So this line was put in place a long time ago. And like with any type of infrastructure, utilities, you want to upgrade as far as current safety standards, technology, maintenance programs, all of that. But that line will remain in place.
So I would like to address your concerns about safety. So with this pipeline, so we start out at the lab. So when the pipe is rolled at the mill, it goes through lab testing to ensure that the material is of the purity that is required. Once it leaves the lab and is out on our right of way, we have inspectors out there on our right of way who ensure that that pipeline in the project is being done according to all policies, procedures, federal, state requirements. When the pipe is welded together, we do what's called non-destructive testing, which examines the welds to ensure the integrity of the welds, that there is no leaks. Then we do a hydrostatic test, which is a strength test to ensure that there is not going to be any leaks in the material. Every year, we do a leak survey on the pipeline to ensure that we don't pick up any signs of gas. And then every 7 years, we run a what's called an ILI tool. It's an inline inspection tool that goes through our pipeline, and it's a device that assesses any wall loss. So if there's any wall loss, we mitigate the potential of any risks once we identify there's a potential of anything wrong with our pipeline. We'll dig it up and assess it and continue to monitor it. So like I said, this is a state-of-the-art pipeline, newest technologies and newest construction practices.
I'm not concerned about the safety of the new one. I'm concerned about what's happening to the old one. Is it gonna just rot away or,
No, so so it's a federal requirement that we what's called integrity management. So operators must identify any potential threats in their system and develop a plan to mitigate those threats. So one of those part of the plan is to run the ILI tools through our pipeline. So it's a requirement that we run the tool and we assess the pipeline. So we have a third party that does that for us. So they look at it and they say if there's any wall loss or any anomalies that we should be aware of. And then our engineers also look at that analysis. So if we identify that there's a potential for any risk in the pipeline, we'll dig it up, we'll assess it, and when we continue to monitor any potential threats to our system.
Ms. Miller, your concerns, we absolutely understand your concerns. We know what you're saying, and we've seen what's happened throughout this country. And our company spends most of its time focused on ensuring that the pipelines that we have in place today are absolutely and completely safe. Angela and the entire engineering department of Mexico Gas Company, that's what they focus on. And we have a first-rate, state-of-the-art integrity management program that exceeds in many respects the federal requirements. We're monitored and we're inspected by the federal PHMSA as well as the New Mexico Pipeline Safety Bureau. We interact with them every day to ensure that our pipelines are safe. This pipeline, the 12-inch Santa Fe main line right now, if it remains in place, and it probably will, because what it does is it serves people along it already. There are people that take gas off that line. So we probably have to leave it in. And I'm sorry that there was some confusion about one of the answers that you got about whether it was gonna be abandoned or left in. It's always been our intent to leave it in because it serves the pueblos and the people up along the way. And it pretty much has to stay in. But that does not mean, and the fact that it was built in '64 does not mean that it's an old pipeline. I mean, these pipelines last 100 years or more, so these are substantial pipelines. And we do everything we can to make sure that pipeline is safe. We don't want anything to happen to any of our customers along these lines. That is certainly, we have as much interest in that as you do. And Angela and her department, that's what they focus on. And so your concerns are valid, and understand that we think about those concerns every day when we go to work.
So we actually have a team right now of 5 engineers that's their job, integrity management, that's all they do, is ensure the safety of our pipelines, and we're actually hiring 2 more engineers, so we'll have 7 engineers that is their focus.
Okay, the other thing, I guess I'm probably not effective because you talked about there was 15 people who you're in whatever with. I mean, from the map, I look real close, but evidently you would have notified me if I would have been affected by any of that stuff. I'm just concerned because it looks like it's like 10 feet away from my property, but evidently it's not. So, because at the last meeting, I thought you said there was a 25-foot easement, and now you said it's 50. Maybe I misunderstood before, 25 on each side. I'm not sure, but
25 on each side, yes ma'am.
yeah, I might have misunderstood that from the last meeting, so I guess it's going in, whether we like it or not, so.
Ma'am, we will, I will give you my card and you can call me directly and we will chat about this.
That's all right. I just want my feelings known, that's all. I'm done.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else from the public who would like to testify? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, my name is Vincent Markey. You need
Mr. Murphy,
my,
yes, just raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm not in opposition to this, I'd like a little more clarification. I have a property in section 11 over here. It's right on the corner of Erica Road and the frontage road. And all I have is your map here. I can't see it. I know you're gonna go through right across the highway, and then right along the frontage road between my property and there's a right of way right there.
Correct.
And I just need some more clarification on that. I know that there is, because I have a permit, or not a, well, is it a permit? We're in the process of building a storage facility on that property. Right there on Erica Road. Right now it's a
Lisa, can you give us 1 second to find
Sure,
what
sure.
it's
I
gonna
can
be?
maybe have you
Maybe-
show us on this.
Yeah, why don't you tell us where you are, let us find your property and we'll look at it.
Okay.
So
It's right on the corner of right where it crosses the highway.
Okay, there you go.
And then it's the blank property right here, is it just before the bend? It's for Erica, this property right here.
Okay.
Right, and there, one of my concerns, or well, I don't know if it's a concern, I'm sure you'll work around it. Right there where you're running this, I know that there's is it a 23-inch high pressure water line running right in that area. So I don't know I'm sure you'll run it above it or below it. And there's that's a 50-foot easement between my property and the edge of the frontage road.
Right,
So I just need some clarification, you know,
of
on
course.
what's gonna happen in that area.
Yeah, so Mr. Markey and Hearing Officer Virtue, so when, part of our application is we had to submit fully engineered utility plans. And so what I did is I pulled up the sheet here, this is just an 11x17, but we have full-size sheets. And I'd be happy to go over with this with you, but the lines being proposed within the Department of Transportation right-of-way. So it is not on the other side of I-25, it is in the DOT right-of-way, it is not in any private land.
Right.
It's within their right-of-way, and we have documentation of all the other utilities in that area. So that is something that the county wanted to make sure that we had thoroughly looked at.
Sure.
And so yes, the placement is obviously within the requirements for separation between utilities. And we do have it documented here, so I'd be happy to get you this sheet, maybe at a larger
Okay.
scale, so you can really see it. And we'd be happy to talk to you about
Alright.
that. But
I'm
it is
just-
not,
I'm
it's
just
not
being
coming onto
nosy.
your property.
I'm just being nosy, I knew
That's
it wasn't
okay.
gonna be in my property.
Of course.
I just would like to know what's gonna,
Yes.
you know, how close or if it's gonna,
Yeah, and after the meeting, if you would like, I'd be happy to show you this,
Okay.
and we can also get you a larger scale than that.
thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to testify? Okay, seeing none, I would ask Ms. Gavin if your intention was to introduce this bound booklet as a separate exhibit in the record?
Yes.
Or is it, you would,
It
okay.
it's a bit redundant to our application, but I think it's a little
It
clearer in the
appears to
graphics.
contain the same
Yes.
information, but it's in a little bit different format, so
Correct.
I would propose to just go ahead and admit that as hearing exhibit number 3.
We are in agreement, yes.
Okay, if
Yes,
there's
sir.
no objection, I will do that, okay. With that, I will close the hearing and we'll make a written recommendation within 15 business days. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much.
4.3, disturbance of 30% slope, to allow an existing foot trail to be improved, creating a disturbance of approximately 3,500 square feet of slopes in excess of 30%. The site is within the Tesuque Community District overlay within the Residential Community Zoning District. The site is located at 72B Bower Road in Commission District 1. With that, we're ready for staff report.
Alright, thank you. The property consists of 9.3 acres and is in the residential community zoning district within the Tesuque Community District overlay. The applicant requests to approve a approximately 350 foot long private dirt foot trail from 3 feet to 6 feet in width. The current conditions of the trail are steep with a raw dirt surface on a heavily forested slope. The proposed improvements also include removing dead brush and trees bordering the existing trail. This is in order to reduce fire risk and danger to the area. The amount of disturbance to the slopes in excess of 30% is approximately 3,475 square feet. The Sustainable Land Development Code allows disturbances of slopes in excess of 30% for driveways only. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a variance of this section of the code. Upon review of the applicant's proposal and visiting the site, staff has concluded that the applicant's proposal is unable to be developed under strict adherence to the terrain management regulations set forth by the Sustainable Land Development Code. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the applicant's request, subject to the conditions as stated in the report. Officer Birchie, may I enter the conditions into the record as stated in the staff report?
You may, they will be entered.
Thank you. Staff requests that hearing officer Birchie memorize the findings of fact and conclusions of law in a written documentation and written recommendation. The Santa Fe County Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on this matter on December 19th, 2019. Hearing officer Birchie, I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that. At this time, I would ask those persons who will speak on behalf of the applicant to please identify yourself for the record by name and address, and then raise your hand and be sworn.
My name's Oralyn Cadet Ortiz. I'm at Design Ingenuity, and my mailing address is P.O. Box 2758, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87504.
I'm the applicant. Do I need to state my
Just
name?
for the record, just
Yes.
please state your name and your address, although it's.
Henry Carey, 72B Bower Road, Santa Fe.
Thank you.
And I'm here as a property manager to Henry's neighbor, and so I'm speaking on her behalf. She's not able to. She doesn't live in town.
Okay, we'll have you proceed after the applicant's representatives present, then we'll have you be sworn in and testify in support.
In support. You got it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, you may proceed.
Okay. Let me just swear you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Do you swear from the chest your mouth to give us the whole truth?
Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Carey is at the end of Bower Road, and there is an existing foot trail from his property going down to Tesuque Creek, and there's quite a bit of dead trees. And if you don't know Mr. Carey, he's the executive director of the Forest Trust. He cares about forest and forest health. And he recognizes he's got a fire hazard, and he wants to widen the trail. This is a blow up of the land he owns. This part is, he still currently owns part across the Tesuque River. He's actually already put in the Forest Trust name. But the trail is impossible to see, but it actually kind of winds down here. And it exists today, and so we got it surveyed in and identified all the significant trees so that we could protect them. And we're not working in the flood zone along the Tesuque Creek, but the intention is just widening it. And just to be clear, there's a condition of approval that no heavy equipment be used. There's not the intention of using heavy equipment, but we'll use a bobcat to widen that road. And there might be a bucket on that bobcat to help remove tree stumps and things like that. There's certainly going to be the trees that are on the pathway that are not significant will be taken out and pulled out, probably with an ATV. And I think that's it. We agree to all conditions as presented. I just wanted you to know that Ms. Lynn Pickard was going to be here today, but I told her I didn't think it was really necessary and you guys were running a little long. But Ms. Lynn Pickard had written a letter of support previously. They're from the local Tesuque community. And there, I think it's some kind of Tesuque Community Planning Board of some sort, I'm not quite sure. But we met with them and got their support. Everybody seems to be happy about it because it's actually helping to reduce the fire danger. So I'll stand for any questions you might have.
I have none at this point. Mr. Carey, would you like to speak?
I think Lynn pretty much summed everything up for me.
Okay. With that, I will now ask for members of the public that wish to speak in support of the application. Yes, sir.
So there'd be my name? Or-
Please, your name and who you're speaking on behalf of and your address.
Okay, my name is Thomas Sorolia. I'm speaking on behalf of Lavinia Courier, who is a boundaries match Mr. Carey's. She is at 72A Bauer Road. My address is in town. I'm not sure, is that significant?
That's sufficient, thank you.
And she is in favor of whatever Mr. Carey feels he needs to do on the property. She feels he's a good steward of the land and she has no concerns whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, I will close the hearing and I will have a written recommendation distributed within 15 working days.
Thank you very much.
We'll be in brief recess until the next applicant shows up.
I thought you were gonna speak up on behalf.
Yeah, there's no questions.
I did. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And proceed.
Okay, thank you.
This is case number 18-5180. Gregorio and Elizabeth Lopez applicants, Rick Chatroop agent, requesting a variance of setback requirements of chapter 9, section 9.11.2. The setback is from New Mexico Highway 599, which requires a 250-foot setback from 599. The property is located off of Highway 599, North Frontage Road at 572, 599 Frontage Road within the Tres Arroyos del Poniente Community Overlay District and is zoned residential estate. It's within Commission District 2. At this time, I would ask those who wish to speak on behalf of the applicant to identify yourself for the record by name and address, and then we'll have you sworn in.
You don't want to staff report first?
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, go ahead with the staff.
You kinda covered it.
It's good, Lloyd, that's okay.
No
My
problem.
mistake.
No worries. All right. The property consists of 2 legal lots of record, one of which is within the city of Santa Fe's jurisdiction and the other located in Santa Fe County's jurisdiction in which Mr. and Mrs. Lopez intend to both lots combined for a total of 6.27 acres. The lot located within the Santa Fe County's jurisdiction where the proposed residence will be located. The lot is within the residential estate zoning district within the Tres Arroyos de Puente community overlay. The applicants request to build a single-family residence within the required 250-foot setback from 599 per Chapter 9, Section 9.11.2.1 of the SLDC. The applicants state that there is a poor drainage on the property that does not allow development in the northern rear portion of the property, and therefore request a variance to build a residence within approximately 98 feet from NM 599. The applicants also state that this request is based off of existing development setbacks on adjoining properties in the area. Upon review of the applicant's proposal and visiting the site, staff has concluded that the applicant's proposed variance is justifiable and to develop under strict adherence to the NM 599 setback set forth in the code would cause the potential risk for future flooding by building the building within a drainage area. In addition, multiple precedents have been set by adjoining neighbors building within the required NM 599 setback. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the applicant's requested variance subject to the conditions as stated in the report. Hearing Officer Virtue may enter the conditions into the record as stated in the staff report.
You may, and they will be entered.
Thank you, sir. Staff requests that Hearing Officer Virtue memorize the findings of fact and conclusion of law in a written recommendation. The Santa Fe Planning Commission will be holding a hearing on this matter on December 19th, 2019. Hearing Officer Virtue, I stand for any questions at this time.
Thank you. Now we will proceed with the application.
Well, we'll get your names and then we'll swear you in. If you don't speak.
Richard Chatru.
Okay.
I'm at 110 Wagon Trail Road, Cerrillos, New Mexico.
Thank you. If anyone else can speak.
My name is Greg Lopez. My present address is 1234 West Cochiti in Hobbs, New Mexico. Shortly, hopefully next year I'll be here.
Elizabeth Lopez. And my address is the same, 1234.
And I'll speak for my daughter, she cannot talk.
Okay.
Nicole Lopez, she's 39 and she's
Same address.
same address,
Okay.
we take care of her.
Okay, raise your right hands. Do you swear from the testimony about to give us the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, we pretty much summed it up in the opening statement there. It's just all about a drainage issue. To force them to put their home at the required setback will force them into a drainage area, which could potentially increase the flow to the neighboring lots and cause more of a problem for the neighbors. Plus having to build up to be able to build in a drainage position. And after doing, I've lost count of how many plats I've recorded in Santa Fe County, but every plat pretty much has a, do not build in the natural drainage, maintenance of the natural historic flow of drainage. So we'd be disturbing the natural historic flow, we'd be increasing the cost of their construction and potentially increasing the flow onto the neighboring properties, channeling it more and causing more damage to the neighboring properties. So that's the whole basis of this request, is to move it forward on a much flatter, much more suitable building site. It's a large lot, and it's just somewhat absurd to push it all the way to the back. And the neighboring parcels on either side have homes that are much closer to the right of way. They were grandfathered in, but they're much closer, so it doesn't create an unusual aspect of this home sticking out in comparison to the neighboring areas.
Thank you.
And also, I'll add, I did get one call today from a Don Senna, who is one of the people I sent a letter to regarding this meeting. And he was fully supportive because he lives in back of them on the Horizon side, the Horizon Lane side. And said, yes, there's been drainage and runoff problems there traditionally. Anytime there's a really large storm, that area gets flooded. So he backed it up and said he hopes that these people get what they want because he thought they were deserving. And it was gonna be a problem if they had to build in the drainage area. I have exhibits if you need to see.
Well, I believe we have exhibits that have already been submitted
Okay.
as part of the staff report, unless you have anything in addition to that.
No, I provided them, I'm sure.
Okay, so, thank you. Mr. Lopez?
The only thing I would like to say is, the lot that is directly north of us, you can see where there was a trailer there, at one time. And as we were going and we purchased the land and we were looking around to see where we wanted to set the house and everything, there was a big storm that came through. And he had built a beautiful deck, enclosed deck and everything. And I mean, that whole storm, everything went to him and just totally engulfed the trailer and everything. He had it up high, so it didn't hurt the trailer. He since then has moved the trailer and he left that porch and people just came and stole all the lumber because it was brand new lumber, piece by piece, and they just took it and there's nothing there now. And I've got a small video if you wanted to see it, where there was one storm and it comes down Don Fidel, and then you could see where it just cuts across and goes straight through my property to get to that one lot eventually. And it was a big, small little lake there. So.
Okay, thank you for that background. Mrs. Lopez, did you wanna say anything?
No, we just, other than I just wanna come back home. I've been away for a long time and I'm just ready to go.
I was born and raised on Aguafia, the village.
Really?
And Lopez Lane is named after my family, so we're from that area and then we're just gonna be a little bit north. And you can't miss the property because of the big mammoth fence I put up.
I think I saw that in the photos.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak in support? Seeing none, are there any members of the public that wish to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and I'll have a written recommendation distributed within 15 working days of today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
That, I believe we are concluded.
Salute the hearing officer for efficient,
Starting to get a little too efficient there.
And I salute staff for being on their toes.
Can I just refer to it and say that staff has a copy of it? Or do you want me to have a copy of the booklet to put with the exhibit? Yeah.